Hello everyone, welcome to the series of AWS lectures. Today we're going to talk about Route 53, which is a DNS service within Amazon Web Services. Now, before we get into Route 53, let's try to understand what is DNS. So DNS stands for Domain Name Service. A lot of us in our day-to-day web browse, we use DNS knowingly or unknowingly. How? Let's say I'm trying to access this website called www.agency.gov.au. That's what I type it in my desktop or my mobile browser, right? So when I do that, the client, which is my laptop or my mobile phone, first needs to resolve what is the corresponding IP address for that DNS name. So this is actually the DNS name. Okay, that corresponds to either a single IP or multiple IPs, depending upon, like for example, if you're touching google.com, Google wouldn't just have one IP because they wouldn't have just one server, right? They may have thousands of servers. So they'll have thousands of IPs. So to not complicate things, a DNS is resolving the name to a IP. So the client would first talk to a DNS server. This can be your local internet service provider. They'll have a DNS server within them, and they will resolve the name to a IP and send it back to the client. Then the client now has the IP address, so using which it will again re-establish a connection to the actual server where the website is being hosted. Because all the communication, the communication in the internet is IP based. So you gotta know the IP to be able to talk to the corresponding application or corresponding website. Now we are doing the DNS because it's hard for us to remember the IPs, and IPs keep changing. Okay, so today it's 32.10. Tomorrow this could be 32.20. So it's hard to keep the IPs with us to reach that particular website or a browser, right? So that's why this whole DNS concept is used. The same would go with Google, right? All we do every day is say google.com. Now, which IP is it being resolved to? That's something that between the client and the DNS server, they are managing it. But for us, it's a user-friendly name, google.com, right? So that's the advantage of having a DNS is we don't have to get into the hassle of remembering all the different crazy IP addresses, and there could be thousands of them. Instead, just remember the name of a user-friendly name. The same service what DNS server is providing within an ISP, you have within AWS, and that service is called as Route 53. Now you may be wondering, why is it Route 53? What does that 53 indicate? So whenever the client tries to talk to the DNS to resolve it to an IP, the port that is used is 53. That's the standard port for DNS. That's why Amazon picked up the name Route 53. Okay. So in here, you got two different clouds regions. Okay. Both of them are AWS, but one of them is in Oregon. This is the United States, and the other one is in Singapore. So you got two different clouds regions, and then you got instance or a virtual machine or a server in each region. Okay. Now let's say I have a common DNS name called apple.com, right? And assuming that Apple has websites in both, Apple has instances that are running the Apple website in both Singapore as well as US. Now, obviously, it makes more sense. Like for example, if the user is from US region, right? Then he would type in apple.com in his browser. That will come to Route 53 service. This needs to resolve it to a IP. Now it has two different instances, each of which will have an IP. Now, which one would it resolve to? Which one would make more sense? Obviously this instance, right? Because the user is in the US region and the EC2 instance is also in the US region. So it would make more sense for this user to reach this instance to talk to that website, because physically it's lesser distance versus this user going to Singapore to access the same website. For a user in India, it makes more sense to access instance within Singapore, right? Now, who is managing resolving the IP that's more local and more fast to the corresponding user? Route 53. So there are different types of routing available within Route 53. You got simple routing, which is simply like a round robin. It doesn't look at the regions. For example, the first request has come from a user in US. It will resolve to Singapore. The next request will resolve to Oregon, and round robin the same way. So it doesn't have the intelligence to figure out, hey, this user is local, so let me resolve him to the US. That's a simplified DNS. And then you got weighted DNS, where you can apply some weights on these instances to say, hey, I want to apply a weight of 100 to Singapore instance, a weight of 50 to US instance, because I know that a lot of the users who access my apple.com is maybe from India. So I want most of my requests to route to this Singapore EC2 instance, because the more users in India accessing that website, let's say. So accordingly, you can set the weights. So 150 means this one will get twice the more requests than this one. Okay. There is another routing which is more intelligent called latency based routing, where that's more like a local, it will give preference to the local EC2 instance, the one that I just described. So this is what Route 53 is. And as we get through the course, we'll learn more and more about this. Thanks, guys.